The food bank is used to dealing with disaster on a daily basis. We face the daily disaster of hunger in people's lives, and we have to be able to make sure that they have enough food to be healthy and able to carry on with their jobs and with their lives. In a typical year, we help 1 in 4 people in the county, and more than 40% of them are children. During the summer months, our Picnic in the Park program distributes 38,000 meals to children who depend on free or reduced price lunches. The way in which the food bank typically operates is that we distribute our 10 million pounds of food through a network of 300 plus member agencies and programs across the county. But during the Thomas disaster, we discovered that a lot of the member agencies were not able to operate as normal. This was because of the dangerous air quality in Santa Barbara. So it fell on us to find alternative ways of distributing that food. We set up 10 different locations, both in Santa Barbara, Carpinteria, and Goleta, that were there to make sure that we could provide food to those that we are typically providing food to, but then also this large group of new people who were affected by the disaster. We found out that during the months of December and January, we served 42% more people than the year before. I think a lot of people have this perception that the food bank is just there for needy people, but in reality, we are the second responders if there's a serious disaster. We just recently, in the month of September, had a major disaster conference where we brought together all of the county agencies and officials who would be operational during a disaster, and we worked together to figure out what we would do during a major earthquake. So we're undertaking a couple of initiatives which are really going to build our preparedness for future disasters. One of them is to make available disaster food boxes that people can buy. Another thing that we're doing is making a major commitment to developing a new volunteer force for the food bank. They would be activated during a time of emergency, and they would open little distributions like the ones that we talked about during Thomas. I think the disaster opened all of our eyes up to the value of food. It really is that thing that binds our community together. And that's why we call this event the Table of Life. I was really excited when I heard who our honorees were at the Table of Life this year. It almost felt like Patrick and Alison had each set up their own little food bank. They were sending food out, they were getting it in from other sources, distributing it, but also providing that type of support that we provide as well.
When we saw on the news the magnitude of the devastation, my brother and I, we basically went out and bought rubber boots and, all the gear prepared to go through that mud. And effectively, we parked at Coast Village, trugging through knee to waist height mud. The strategy was to, number one, see if the shop is still open, okay, because we thought it was probably gone. And number two, if it is, kind of leap into action, open up those doors and do what we can to provide refreshments and facilities for the first responders. So we literally hand-carved the day of about 100 sandwiches just to give them something. And the appreciation and gratitude that they had was just very, very powerful. And because of the response from those first responders, I made a promise and a commitment that I would do whatever I can to keep the wine and cheese open for them. My inspiration for me was my father, because my father, during the tea fire, a couple hundred people lost their homes. He wouldn't accept money from them until they got back on their feet. The second day, on the 10th, I rush out in the morning to Home Depot. And within 10, 15 minutes, senior management at Home Depot gave the green light for them to give me a generator. Then I reached out to Trader Joe's as well. They supplied me with groceries and support. And Vaughn's showed up with 150 bags of food. When you put out a small act of kindness, which to me as insignificant as what I did is, right, but it inspires a lot of other people. I literally had 50 people coming in helping me make sandwiches to then go feed the rest of the community. I'll tell you, my father passed 2 years ago in 2016. My father was probably one of the sweetest, kindest men. I think that if he realized how much of an impact that he made on so many people, including myself, which gave me the inspiration to do what I did, it would put a big smile on his face.
I was standing on the street on January 20th, and there was nobody on the street, and I kept watching the trucks come down. All I could think of was, I'm one person, what can I do about this? And I just kept thinking, you can do something. And the something is kindness, Alison. I didn't really know what that would mean. I just thought a hot cup of coffee, a cookie. It wasn't a life jacket, but it was something to let people know we miss them, we care, we're here, and we're not going anywhere. Because I just didn't know what to expect, if anybody would come out, but people sort of slowly came out. And so we started a community board where people could find out where other people were getting help. We actually started feeding the teams that would come from all over. They're volunteers, and they just help people, take away the mud, and they cut down the trees. The other thing we were doing was feeding the bucket brigade. I saw pregnant women digging. I saw 70-year-olds digging. And I think people needed something to say, no, we're not alone. We're going to fight to stay here. And so I think places on Coast Village Road and on Upper Village, they were sort of little lights in a very dark place. People come to Jeannine's to eat and feel nourished, but I think the food is the vehicle or the conduit to make a connection with another human being. I got to be a part of a community that turned and faced their problems, and they went after it with kindness and generosity of spirit, and that lifted me. It was the food that brought them, that gave them permission to tell their story, to venture out and say, this is what happened to me. I can't change the disaster that came, and there's nothing that's going to put that mud back up the mountain. But maybe we could put kindness back in that way, one act upon another. And I thought, that I can do. And that is what we can do as a community. And I needed to see our community was going to do that, and it did. It was remarkable.